Hi, I'm Cindy Graves, your Activities Director here at the Four Seasons of Beaumont. And this is part of a series called Isolation Interviews. It's an opportunity for you, our wonderful residents, to get to know some of the neighbors that you may not have otherwise had the opportunity to meet because of this whole quarantine situation. We have a very important person that I think you're going to love and enjoy. Her name is Maria Ginetti. Everybody probably knows her husband well, but this is the woman behind the man. And Barry Ginetti is the chairman of the finance committee, along with his many other involvements. But this is the woman behind the man. And let's go digging right into it. Hi, Maria. Welcome so much to Isolation Interviews for Shut-In Theater.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit, how long have you and Barry lived in Four Seasons?
Well, this Christmas it'll be 6 years. And it's hard to believe that it's been 6 years. It goes so fast. Even faster than when we were not part of the community, which is, I think, a good thing. Because it means that we're connected and involved and committed to living here. So
I love that. Where did you guys move from?
We moved from Pennsylvania. We were outside of Philadelphia, and we lived in a wonderful little town called Doylestown, which is almost a ditto of Redlands, because we had a university and we were not far from New York City. So it was a very good historic town for visiting. And just think of Redlands, and that's where we came from. So
that's so neat. Well, you and I have some things in common because I'm a Pennsylvania girl. And State College is where I'm from, and you guys are super familiar with that, where Penn State is. So that's kind of a little baby bonding that we have in common.
That's true. And you kind of have a sense of what it's like to be from Penn State, because we're immersed in that. And it just is amazing. So, thank you for the opportunity. Maybe it's because I was a Penn State. I don't know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, there's bonding there. There's bonding. I love it. Not to mention the fact that your accents are so homey and familiar to me. So I love that.
It feels good.
Feels good. One of the major reasons, not just to get to know you as a neighbor, but one of the main reasons that I specifically asked to have an interview with you was because of a discussion that we had having to do with my expressing to you that it's become very clear that many of our strongest folks and leaders in the community are sinking into a new struggle and depression with anxiety due to the length of time that people have been isolated and out of physical contact with their community. Many people, especially singles, are finding it hard to cope and deal with circumstances that feel out of their control and are coming up short within themselves, not quite knowing how to create new ways of thinking as they resist what appears to be a temporary new normal. This is where you have been uniquely positioned with your current physical situation to be able to speak into some of these dilemmas. You've been seasoned to know what it's like to try to reconcile physical restrictions with what you really wish you were able to do. And you have overcome some of the mental challenges involved with feeling victim to a situation that you can't necessarily control. You're a huge-hearted person with an outreach spirit, and I think many who listen to this interview are going to be encouraged and uplifted with a new sense of perspective. I deeply respect your interest in caring for our community, and I know that you have also facilitated many groups in the past, and I want to just glean from your insight and perspective and your expertise. So Maria, my little doll face, explain a little bit some of the groups that you've helped to facilitate in the past.
Well, my background is an educator, so I've been doing groups forever. And here's something that addresses what you stated in the beginning. When I was diagnosed with MS, I was 32. And just at the turning point of being a really good professional, and you're a little more seasoned, you have all your friends and your contacts and a little bit of history to grow on, and it was all taken away from me. And that was the really hard part, because of my youth, where you still have that gumption and that feeling of making a difference in the world. And how am I gonna reinvent myself? But that question never came up till after years of therapy. I have to say, it was hard, but it can be done. And we don't need years of therapy to turn this around in our head. So that this is an easy task compared to a lifelong journey that I had in front. So I don't even know if I answered that question. Forgive me. What did you ask me? Did I answer?
Well, basically, I love the fact that you're bringing in a physical situation, since people are feeling physically constrained and unable to really do the things that they either felt maybe a certain calling to do, or just have a big desire to do, whether it be involvements that are adding enrichment to their life, or whether it be something that's really important to their identity. And you've had to deal with that. You've had to deal with that. And what was some of the mental process that you went through in order to reconcile the situation that you're being presented with, that you're in, that you don't have control over, you know, like so many others, but you in an extreme situation have had to reconcile that. What was the mental process of coming to a place of reconciling where you are, and then being able to reinvent yourself in a way that you felt was comfortable and meaningful?
Wow. That was such a large question. I'm trying to back it up and go to the beginning. Your very first statement was what? In the paragraph that you were working on.
Yeah, that basically was, you've been seasoned to know what it's like to reconcile physical restrictions with what you really wish you were able to do. How did you start that mental process?
Well, everybody, not just me, but when you are faced with something like this, there's a tremendous grieving that goes on. Yes. Because you have to face the fact that the way you perceived yourself and your life is like sucked right out of you. Mm-hmm. And it's a big chunk to handle. So I'm also lucky that I'm living at a time where there isn't the stigma of psychotherapy the way my it was with my mother's generation. My mother also had MS. So it was almost negative that I knew what the future would hold, because people that are not as familiar with all the good, the bad, and the ugly, wouldn't have that much thrown at them and forced to digest it and you're trying to assimilate the new you over years of therapy and mourning. I'll say it the way it was. So everybody has to give themselves permission to just, you don't have to be that extreme is what I was explaining, but to mourn, feel bad, feel angry, like all those questions like, why is this happening to me? I didn't see this as our end. We came here to have fun. We came here for connection and to give ourselves some joy. We worked hard all our lives. Do we deserve this now? I mean, I'm just going over some of the questions and feelings that people might have experienced or are experiencing. So.
Well, absolutely. And I think you're hitting it the nail right on the head, because there is a grieving that is going on. There's a grieving about things they're seeing on the news that feel almost like the tearing down of our society in ways that we've known it, and that we have expectations of what normal is. And then there is also a grieving, and it's interesting because I did have someone mention to me who is a very strong leader in this community, who basically mentioned to me that it feels as though they're grieving over the loss of a loved one, right? Which is the situation that they're in, their country, or quarantine, or whatever. But that's a good point that you make, that in order to reconcile where you are now and what is going on with our national circumstance, shall we say, that you're basically saying it's okay to grieve, and that's part of the process to being able to accept where you are now. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's the first step, and it's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
And what helps that is communication with others that are in your same situation. Well, that's all of us. And even though we're not formally connecting, we can count our blessings that at least we have this technology to, if we really want to connect and soothe our souls, so to speak, it's there. It takes a little more work and a little more figuring out, and maybe we need a tech coach. But it's how much do you want to continue to live life? Mm-hmm. And everybody has their own answer.
Now, you've led and facilitated numerous groups at different times, right? Obviously, it's great in the fact that you're able to comfort others with the same comfort sort of that you have been able to find through the processing that you have had to do. And in that's a giving back. That's a giving back to whatever community that you are in. How important do you think giving back in some way is to coming to a reconciliation of circumstance that you're not happy with, or that people during this season?
Well, it's very unique to each individual, because to some of us, that was never part of our life. Mm-hmm. That was never part of a goal. You were involved in many other laser like cerebral energies that you didn't ever go inside enough to ask about how can I help others. It's kind of sad, but it isn't universal. So
That is fascinating.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, that is fascinating. And it may also have to do, like you were saying, you know, when folks were younger and were so immersed in their careers more so, um, the giving circle or the circle of influence was probably where they actually were working, or family members outside of that. And now here we have a whole community full of folks who have now been removed from, at least the majority of them have been removed from a work family, right? And now many of them are not really even allowed to physically connect with their own families.
That's that, if I have to interrupt, that is one of the biggest heartaches right now. Because now we have the time
Mhm.
to connect with family on a much more meaningful, in-depth level. And we envisioned being physically close and emotionally close and really connecting, sometimes for the first time, maybe with our grandchildren, depending on their age and development. And it's robbed from us.
Ooh, that is a great descriptor. And I think that feeling of being robbed does make you feel more like a victim to the situation, and
Very vulnerable. You
very
feel very,
vulnerable. Yeah. And in many ways, I mean, all of us really are victims to this whole situation because no one's obviously choosing it. But how do we turn around um, a feeling of victimization in the situation to make this great pause, as some have named it, the quarantine, to make it feel valuable and to make it feel productive rather than just a ripoff?
well, with every dark cloud, there's always a silver lining.
Mhm.
So it has to come, the silver lining has to come from within. And the challenge is many of us are not used to that process of asking the big questions of what is really important and how can I still live those same values but in a different way.
Mm.
And there it lies the answer. And I just brought up something before about, well, we have the technology now. I mean, what if this would have happened, you know, 15 years ago to us? Where would we be? So this is very positive, and I can only use my own personal situation where I was feeling, robbed of my niece and my nephew and, my sister and all of that. So that now it's kind of caught on, but months ago I had started family meetings, and seeing the kids and what they're doing and their projects. And um, now that they're going back to school, I can really, as a teacher, ask them, well, what are you doing? And uh, how does that make any sense to you? And, depending on the age level, but it's actually easier to focus and keep the kids one-to-one involved because if you ask them the right questions, they are connecting. So that part is positive compared to if you just had them in a room for an afternoon and you all had lunch together and everybody's running around outside. That's a different experience. They're both positive, but we're trying to do everything in a very different, meaningful way.
Oh, I totally love that. And then what are some suggestions that you found are helpful um, at different ages during this time? So are you doing regular timed meetings so that the kids have an expectation that I'm going to be meeting with, we're going to have this meeting at a particular time on a regular schedule? Is that how you're doing it?
We do it. We meet every Wednesday
Okay.
at 7:15 their time,
Okay.
4:15 our time, and it's after dinner, or depending on the day, during dinner, how things kind of get compressed when the plans are not always accurate, and families are living, breathing, moving organizations. Just, think of something on a cellular level where nothing ever sits and stays stationary. It's always a moving organism. Well, a family is. And so, and your family, you might not realize what I just said, but if you close your eyes for a couple minutes and picture the ages of the kids and what they were doing the last time you connected, you can start to put this puzzle together and meet them at exactly the right stage. It takes a little mental, but you can do it.
So do you have anything structured that you're doing with your kids, or are you doing it pretty much extemporaneous?
Extemporaneous, like yesterday. And with kids, I find it's better because that's just the way they live. And my niece, Mia, for the first time says, well, I want to play a game. And I said, okay. And she gives you these instructions on how to play the game. And she was so teacher-like. She's, no, I want you to look down at your screen because we don't know how to use the equipment as well. I want you to look down at your screen in the left-hand bottom corner, and I'll take your cursor. And it was just so impressive at how adult and directive, and she gave the instructions. It made me, it warmed my heart. And that's what happens if you take the time to let them lead instead of, as adults, we kind of want to just ask questions that are not always open-ended. I think if you're going to work or get something from a relationship, whether it's on screen or in person, is ask open-ended questions. You don't ever want to ask a yes or no answer because what's that going to do for the conversation? Okay, so that's a cue that you can use. And
Oh, that's so good.
yeah, and also the parents that are your children, it's wonderful if you pick their brain a little bit before a meeting that's for the kids and say, well, what are they into? Who are they playing with? How many people down the street are okay to actually be with for a short time? I mean, we have to be reality based too, because the edict that is out there is not reality for humanity. I mean, we need people to thrive. We are not designed to be separated. We need to be insulated and supported. So however we can think of those words or other words that you come with on how to make your own little perfect world.
That's really neat. I think that hopefully this conversation that we're having, for those that are watching this, if residents haven't thought about taking an opportunity to get to know what might be an otherwise intimidating platform like Zoom, that it is worth it. And it is worth learning some of this technology to take best advantage of this rare opportunity, right? To get to know our grandkids or get to know special others And just like what you were saying, that was really beautiful about the fact that, yeah, we were never intended to be alone. You know, we are meant to be in a community. And I know with my situation, I have a granddaughter, and, you know, lockdown has just been brutal for these little kids. I mean, she just turned 9, and she's having a really difficult time not being able to see her friends and go
And
to school.
see, kids create joy from each other and when they're playing. And this modality, shall we call it,
Yeah,
it doesn't work for that. And
no.
they are struggling. And I think there's an extra responsibility on the parents,
There is.
and if the grandparents want to take it on, to figure out what to do and how to do it. And there are still, we live in Southern California, so the idea of not being together in the outdoors is, it doesn't even have to affect us.
Yeah.
Like people that live in the Northeast, it's starting to get cold. My sister said, well, it was 42 yesterday. And then 2 weeks ago, they had the really hot, high 90 humidity, 90 temperature. So, you know, it's forcing us to be so flexible and to be in flux and to ride the wave of life, that it's overwhelming. And we're used to taking little baby steps and not looking at the bigger picture of life. And that's what I think this is causing us to do.
Okay, so in kind of reviewing, because I want to make sure that people are getting this, because I want to make sure I'm getting this, that even though we are going through a really challenging time that's out of our control, it is okay to see it for what it is and to go ahead and grieve about it. And then it is okay also to sort of reinvent yourself as an individual, meaning how you can make the most out of the opportunities that this space is giving us. And oh gosh, I wish I would have taken notes on what you said just a little bit ago, or the way you said it, that had to do with living your, how did you say it? Living your highest values or something, within the context of the constraints of the situation, basically.
I talked about what is really important to you.
Yes.
And at our age, we can have some perspective. It is harder for our children and their children to even go to the bigger picture. But we can look back and say, you know, when I was working, I wish I would have had more time for the kids. I mean, I didn't get home early enough. I mean, we had to, you know, kind of smush everything together at night and fit in the homework. And that isn't the way I really wanted to spend the time with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it forced us to really carefully plan our weekend time so we could be a family. Because some of the time we didn't even get to sit down to dinner together. And that's a really important bonding time for families. But the way our lives are designed now, and the pace of life and the pace of school and the pace of work, it robs us of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not an easy task to go bigger and farther on how to bring that into our life, because we didn't even have that great of an experience when we were younger, because the speed of life was picking up,
Yeah.
really. And
Yeah.
it's like this ocean wave that you could see way out there, and it's so big and so giant. But if you take a moment and notice, it's going to roll in and smooth out and bubble to calmness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a way of kind of, I can't teach you how to do this, but it's a mental mindset. And one thing before we run out of time, I would like to say that in circumstances like this, when I use the term, you have to learn to go inside. One of the easiest, quickest things to do, which you've heard of many, many times, is to stop when you feel the anxiety coming up or you feel the discomfort coming up. Where do you feel it in your body? And then start to breathe. Take really delicious, high volume, raise your chest breath and let it out as slow as you can. And if you do that for 10 times, you will be in a very calm, loving place. So that's one technique. And I know people always poof about meditation and so forth, but if you can, that is what an average person calls going inside. And in the beginning, till you get to know how to do this and you get to model others on how to do this and to talk about what it feels like when you're a newbie and you say, I'm sitting there, I don't know what to do. I'm thinking of what to have for dinner tonight. I'm really hungry. And if you can, learn to do that even in your own head or with family members or good friends, that it helps so much. And you realize how we're all the same. It's just, oh, they were thinking about what to have for dinner. I was thinking about what I had to do tomorrow. And it just unearths all of the little pieces of life which are important.
Well, plus there's also a neurological response that you're kind of triggering just through the biological process of breathing and oxygenating your brain and then purposely releasing, right? Some of that.
You said it perfect, because that's what we're doing. We are in charge of our mind. Many people feel that we're not. But I mean, not to a deep extent, but the fact that we can help it control our life, our mood, our actions, our values. And it's all there for the taking, but you have to be coaxed through it.
It's neat too, because you're really expounding on techniques regarding mindfulness, really.
Yes.
I know that on our activities corner, we just started a little feature called Mindful Mondays.
Wonderful.
With some little tips and so forth. But your breathing, your little breathing trick and technique, that is a fabulous one that even if people have heard it, they may not have actually tried it. And I think especially when the level of anxiety due to uncertainty is reaching new highs in people's lives. This little cloistered community may not be, well, they may be better off than most because of the fact that so many have retirements and they don't maybe have as many financial uncertainties as outside the gates. But we still do have residents who are dependent upon work. And
us are still working.
Yeah. Yes.
And it was surprising when I met people. I thought, gee, how can you live this way and still work? But it is doable. But see, my mind never went there before that question came up in my head. Well, how can you be in this wonderful, nirvana, and it looks like you're on vacation all the time, and still have the mindset of working?
Yeah.
That's challenging.
Well, and it's interesting too.
I applaud those people.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. But a lot of those people, or some of those people, are really needing to be reminded because of uncertainties of jobs or other situations, to be reminded of physiological techniques that can be employed to get some of that anxiety off of you, even for a temporary period. That breathing that you were talking about, super important. And even just taking a small amount of time. I mean, everybody's heard this before, but guess what? Now it's a great opportunity to actually employ it, because we need it.
Important. Before, people were, there was no motivation if life was working for you.
Right.
But now that something's been taken away, and that something is so enormous that the motivation is there now, because you want to feel better and you still want to continue to live the good life you anticipate. And without some of these techniques, I don't know if it's possible.
That is a really good point, seriously. And the other thing too that I just want to throw in there, I don't know if have you found anything about diet or sleep being important to the overall sense of well-being with anxiety?
Oh, definitely. The getting yourself on a good routine where you still, as if you're working, when you still go to bed at a certain time, you still get up at a certain time, you still have Zoom meetings at a certain time. Keep your day and your week as tightly organized as possible. Because if you flounder around at home, there's too much, I call it loose negative time. And that's when your brain and your mind starts to do the old poor pitiful me session. So the busier you can stay, but it doesn't have to be busy, just busyness. Things that you have put into your schedule that have meaning. I mean, maybe you will take 20 minutes in the morning to do some breathing. A lot of people are now enjoying yoga, which is part of the same mindset. And it's the next level, because you're not just involving the mind, you're involving the body. And when the body and the mind are working together, it's very powerful.
That's neat. I think too, that reminds me of the phrase outer order, inner peace, right? And I love that even when it comes to, go ahead. It's funny, I saw this, I don't know, I guess on Facebook or something, where there was some question about how many people make their beds, every day. And yeah, but I do find that like loose negative time, that's a great term. Never heard it, but that is really a great term. That basically, even if we can keep our environment in some sort of order when we're feeling bummed out or depressed, and the temptation is, oh, I'll just put the dishes on the sink there because I just don't feel like it. I'm going to sit and watch TV and just kind of immerse myself in nothingness. But taking the time, like you were alluding to get some kind of a little schedule together that feels as though you are living purposefully in some manner that's meaningful.
That you rephrased it beautifully, and you got it. And I think people here hopefully will get themselves motivated enough to carve out some time for themselves. And we have nothing but time right now. So one of the blessings of this COVID situation is that it's increased our alone time. And it might be the first time in our lives that we've ever had alone time.
Ooh, good
and it's amazing how you can, I mean, maybe you've always, what did you always want to get to do? It's almost like a kid. When I grow up, I want to be a policeman. Okay, well, when I get retired, what did I really want to do? Or what was the most thing I used to love to do when I was younger? Or even when I was a kid? Lee Iacocca used to started off with his red wagon up on the hill. And look at his empire now. And he, made cars when he was cool. And I don't know if he was in that Boy Scout Jamboree thing, where you always had the name of it is escaping me, but they all had they made their cars and they raced them.
Yes,
And
yes.
that was his life, but it wasn't around the Boy Scout activity. But I'm saying you have those little sparks inside of you. You're still the same person. But if you don't have quiet time or alone time, it's never going to percolate to the top.
Boy, that's so good. That is so meaningful right now. And I think we all, even if we've heard of these things before, this is the perfect time to actually do it.
This is not new information to anybody,
No,
especially at our age. But have we ever decided to actually do it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Very few.
Very few.
It takes self-discipline. And there's where groups, whether on Zoom or outside, and you're close enough to talk, but you're not exactly 6 foot away, we might have to shave off some of the requirements. And that depends on everybody's personal comfort zone. And we're learning to respect each other's comfort zone, because some people feel desperate to have the mask on. And other people are saying, well, we're going to be outside. Here's the activity. I'm not going to bother. And when you get together with people, what I've started to do is try to respectfully ask, well, do we need masks or not? Are you comfortable with this or not? Let me know, because it's better for both of us.
That's nice. That's nice.
Just ask.
Well, and it does seem like we're a tiny bit short on consideration sometimes right now. And, one of the other things, speaking of consideration, which I love the idea of just going the extra mile to be considerate of your neighbor, of who you're with, even if it's on Zoom. It seems like, yeah, we're a little bit short right now on being considerate of one another.
We're all short on patience and understanding, and our reserve for those experiences right now are all gone. We have used them up. And so it's okay to acknowledge to someone that I shouldn't have done that. Just, I'm wore down today, and forgive me. It's okay to just say what's so.
Oh, that's so great, because doesn't transparency lead so much into better bonding and communication if people really know what's going on?
That's true. And the beauty of being our age is that we know how to do that. When you're younger, it's just not available.
Oh, that's so good. Are there any tips that you might be able to have, that you would have, that might be able to help folks who would like to be more encouraging or uplifting to their neighbors that are having a hard time right now?
Well, first of all, it's okay to knock on somebody's door and say, I know we're not supposed to go in the house, but it's a gorgeous day. How do you feel about going for a walk? It's offering yourself. And I know for me, I got so much time, and I used to love cooking and giving away food and meals, and it's a part of yourself that you're offering to the person. It's no different than we people that are. I am they call me the plant lady. So, but it's a joy of giving cuttings or separating the bulbs and sharing that with someone, because as you see it grow, there's a part of you with it. And it's just, everybody will have those kind of little things inside. I talked about the plants and the cooking, but everybody has their own thing. I mean, maybe they are the best mechanic and they can fix and repair anything. Well, how many of your neighbors could use that skill?
Mhm.
You know, offer. And I think that's a good way to get through it.
Oh, that's so neat. Maria, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with us and helping us to have a little bit bigger perspective on a situation that does feel out of our control and actually is out of our control, but to try to make it a little more purposeful, a little bit more meaningful. Thank you for sharing with us just some of the process that you've gone through with your own physical situations. And yeah, we're looking forward to hearing back from some folks that are actually going to try to implement some things to help them feel more comfortable and less anxious as we move forward in this time.
Well,
You're awesome.
It's been a pleasure. And it's been a pleasure to use my skills that I was thinking they're totally dormant, you know, because I'm removed from my colleagues and support people and brainstorming about issues and so forth. So I enjoyed it as much as I hope the people listening did.
I'm also secretly excited to hear that you're a plant lady because that is also my passion. And Pat Wayne, if you happen to be listening to this, she is one of the initiators of the community garden and the Gardeners Club. So she might want to connect with you.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to people connecting with me. I'll do that through you since it seems more appropriate right now.
Sure, absolutely. And yeah, if any residents who are watching this would really like to have further discussion with Maria or would like to get a hold of her, just give me a buzz and I will give you her email, or upon her permission, I'll give you her phone number and you guys can text back and forth or you can call or whatever works for you guys.
And the whole purpose of this is to feel good about people, to feel good about themselves and feel good about using their sparks, I'll call it, to connect with other people. Because on your the neighborhood morning news, I forget the name of it, right?
Yep.
You know, it's okay to say, you know, I'm really interested in da 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 da. If anybody else is out there, here's my email. I mean, this can open up more connections than if we were only doing it face to face.
Ooh, that's good. All right, so listen to what Maria is saying, and if anybody would like to have further information or would like to connect with me, give me a buzz. You know where to find me, under my desk. Write me, and thank you again for joining us for another episode of Isolation Interviews. And Maria, Ginetti, I can't thank you enough for spending time with us and helping us out today.
It's a pleasure.